I was standing in the aisle at a big box store yesterday, just watching people, and it honestly made me kind of sick. You see these families, they're staring at a wall of 50 screens, and everything is just screaming. The brightness is cranked to max, the colors are radioactive, the demos are running at 60 frames per second, and none of it is real. It is a hallucination. It's retail demo mode. It is engineered, literally engineered, to override your better judgment. And the worst part is, the specs on the box, they're lying to you too. Motion rate 120, that's usually just a 60 hertz panel blinking fast. Infinite contrast, that is a number a marketing guy made up in a spreadsheet. It doesn't mean anything. So you buy the one that looks punchy in the store, you get it home, you dim the lights for movie night, and suddenly the black bars are gray. The movement looks like a soap opera, and you're wondering why you spent $800 on a headache. We are going to stop that right now. I'm not reading the press release. I'm going to show you the only 5 things that actually determine if a TV is garbage or gold. If you want reviews that actually respect your intelligence and your wallet, do me a huge favor and hit that subscribe button. It helps us buy these units retail so the brands can't send us cherry-picked units. We appreciate it. Now let's look at the actual glass. Okay, let's start with the elephant in the room, the number on the box. 4K, 8K, you walk in, you see 8K, and your brain goes, bigger number, better TV, right? It's logical, but it's wrong. It is completely irrelevant. Unless you're sitting 6 inches from the screen, which if you are, please stop, you're scaring the cat, your eye physically cannot resolve the difference between 4K and 8K from 8 feet away. It's biology. And here's the kicker. Even 4K is kind of a lie. Think about what you actually watch. You're not watching uncompressed Blu-ray discs all day. You're streaming. You're watching Netflix, YouTube, maybe some cable news if you still have the cord. That signal coming into your house, it is compressed to within an inch of its life. It is messy. It is starved for data. A 4K stream from Netflix is maybe 15 megabits per second if you're lucky. A real 4K disc is 80.
So the first thing that actually matters isn't pixel count. It is processing. It's the brain inside the TV. Because that TV has to take a low-quality, fuzzy 1080p signal, or even 720p if you're watching sports on cable, and it has to invent, literally invent, millions of missing pixels to fill that 4K screen. This is where the budget trap happens. You see a TV like the Samsung Crystal UHD, the CU7000 or the DU8000, or the entry-level LG UQ series. These are the best-selling TVs in America. They are in every Costco, every Best Buy, piled high on pallets. And people buy them because they trust the name. It's a Samsung, it must be good. But the processor inside those entry-level sets, it is weak. It's struggling. When you feed it a fast-moving football or a dark scene from House of the Dragon, it panics. It creates noise. It creates these weird blocks in the shadows. We call it macro blocking. The TV is guessing what the picture should look like, and it's guessing wrong. And that brings us to the second thing that actually matters. Maybe the most important thing, light control. Look at that. That is what we call IPS glow, or low contrast. Most budget TVs, and I'm talking about anything under that $500 mark usually, are edge lit. Imagine a flashlight shining from the bottom of the screen trying to light up the whole panel. It can't do it evenly. So black isn't black. It's dark gray. It's washed out. If you're watching a movie with black bars at the top and bottom on an edge-lit TV, those bars will be glowing gray. It ruins the immersion. It reminds you constantly, hey, you're watching a TV screen. It doesn't look like a window, it looks like a monitor. So if we're skipping the edge-lit stuff, where do we go? This is where the market gets interesting. This is where the math actually starts to work in your favor. Enter mini LED. You've probably seen the term. It sounds like buzzword soup, but physically, it's different. Instead of a flashlight at the bottom, you have thousands of tiny LEDs directly behind the screen. And, this is the crucial part, they can turn off independently. They call it local dimming zones. Think of it like a mosaic. If one part of the screen needs to be black, the TV just cuts the power to those LEDs. Boom, true black, or close to it. Right now, the kings of this real-world performance category are the Hisense U8 series and the TCL QM8 series. I'm bringing these up because they represent a shift. 5 years ago, you had to spend $2,000 to get this tech. Now, you can get a 65-inch mini LED for under $1,000, sometimes under $800 on sale. And on paper, they are monsters. They are brighter than the sun, they have thousands of dimming zones, they hit specs that $3,000 TVs were hitting 3 years ago. But, and there is always a but, specs aren't everything. While these TVs destroy the budget traps in raw power, brightness, contrast, color volume, they sometimes struggle with the finesse. Remember that processing we talked about, the brain? Hisense and TCL have come a long way, but they aren't quite at that Sony level of magic yet. Sometimes in a really tricky scene with a lot of smoke or fog, the mini LEDs can get confused. You might see a little blooming, a halo of light around a bright object on a black background. It's subtle. Most people, they won't notice it. They'll just see the blindingly bright HDR and be happy. But if you're picky, if you're the kind of person who notices when the lip sync is off by a millisecond, you might see it. Actually, I want to know where you stand on this. Are you the type of person who notices those little artifacts, the motion stutter, the blooming, or do you just want it to be bright and colorful? Because that really dictates whether you should save the money on a Hisense or pay the Sony tax. Drop a comment below. Tell me what TV you're running right now and what one thing about it drives you absolutely crazy. Is it the gray blacks, the slow interface? I read those comments. It helps me figure out what we need to test next. Now, if you're sitting there thinking, Chris, I don't want good for the money, I want good, period. Or maybe you're thinking, I watch movies in the dark and I want that picture to look like a photograph. Then mini LED is fine, it's great, but it's not the end game. There is another technology that basically breaks the rules of physics. It doesn't use a backlight at all. It doesn't use zones. It uses pixels that are their own light. I'm talking about OLED, and specifically the battle between the LG C series and the Sony A80. See that? That's an OLED pixel turning off. It's not dimmed. It is dead. It is void. It is infinite contrast. When an OLED TV shows you black, it is literally producing zero light in that spot. That is why people freak out when they see OLED for the first time. The image has this pop. It looks 3D because the depth is perfect. But here is where the marketing tricks you again. They tell you OLED is perfect. It's not. It has a weakness, a kryptonite, and if you have a certain type of living room, buying an OLED might be the biggest mistake you make this year. See, OLEDs are organic. That's what the O stands for. They wear out. They can burn in, though that's rare these days unless you watch CNN for 12 hours a day. But the bigger issue? Brightness. If you have a room with windows, like real windows without blackout curtains, an OLED might struggle. It's getting better, the new panels are brighter, but a mini LED like that TCL we talked about, it can get 2, maybe 3 times brighter than an OLED. It can fight the sun and win. An OLED, it might just turn into a very expensive mirror. So the third thing that matters, environment. Not the planet, your environment, your room. Manufacturers test in pitch black labs. You don't live in a lab. And this brings me to the fourth thing, and honestly, this is the one that nobody talks about until they get the TV home and try to watch a football game. Motion handling. Motion is weird because if it's done right, you don't notice it. But if it's done wrong, it makes you nauseous, or it makes a Hollywood blockbuster look like Days of Our Lives. Here is the biggest lie on the spec sheet right now. Motion rate. You'll see a budget TV, let's say a $400 55-inch model, and the box screams motion rate 120, and you think, great, 120 hertz, that's fast. No, it isn't. Motion rate 120 usually means it's a 60 hertz panel. That screen can only refresh 60 times a second. The 120 comes from the backlight blinking really fast, we call it black frame insertion, to trick your eye into thinking it's smoother. But it's fake. It's a strobe light, and for a lot of people, it causes eye strain. It makes the image darker. It's a hack.
If you watch sports, if you watch hockey, football, basketball, or if you play video games on a PS5 or Xbox Series X, you need a native 120 Hz panel. Not effective, not motion rate, native. Why? Because sports are fast. When a quarterback throws a pass, a 60 Hz TV can't keep up. The ball disappears. It becomes a smear. A 120 Hz panel keeps that ball sharp. It keeps the player's jersey numbers readable when they're running. And this brings us to the brand that honestly kind of owns this space. If you care about motion, and I mean really care, you have to talk about Sony. People ask me all the time, Chris, why is the Sony X90L or the Bravia 7 so much more expensive than the Hisense or TCL? They use similar panels. You are paying for the brain. You are paying for the XR processor. See, Sony has been doing this longer than anyone. Their motion processing is spooky. They can take a 24 frame per second movie and show it on a 120 Hz screen without making it look like a soap opera. They respect the judder. They keep the cinematic feel but remove the headache-inducing stutter. Most budget brands, they just smooth everything out. It looks like the actors are gliding on ice. It looks fake. You can turn it off, it's usually called motion smoothing or MEMC, but then you get stutter. Sony finds that middle ground. It is the Sony tax, and for sports fans, it is absolutely worth it. But let's talk about the gamers, because if you plug this thing, he waves the controller, into a 60 Hz TV, you are driving a Ferrari in a school zone. You need HDMI 2.1. It's a specific type of port. And you need VRR, variable refresh rate. This is where LG enters the chat. The LG C series, C3, C4, whatever number they're on when you watch this, has been the king of gaming TVs for years. Why? Because it has 4 full bandwidth HDMI 2.1 ports. You can plug in a PS5, an Xbox, a PC, and they all run at 4K 120 Hz with VRR. VRR is magic. If the game slows down, like when a huge explosion happens and the frame rate drops, the TV slows down with it. No tearing, no stutter. It is buttery smooth.
Samsung does this well too, but Sony? They only give you 2 HDMI 2.1 ports on most models, and one of them is usually the eARC port for your soundbar. So if you have a soundbar and 2 consoles, you're swapping cables. It's annoying. It's a detail, but it's a detail that will annoy you every single day. Now, let's pivot to the people who just want their eyeballs to melt, the pop chasers. This is Samsung's territory, the QN90 series or the S95 OLED. Samsung engineers their TVs to be aggressive. They push brightness hard. They push color saturation hard. In the industry, we say they don't always respect creator intent. A director might want a scene to be dark and moody. A Samsung TV says, nah, let's make it bright and visible. And you know what? A lot of people love that. If you have a bright living room, a Samsung mini LED like the QN90 is a torch. It cuts through reflections like they aren't even there. The anti-glare coating is top tier. But, and this is a big but, they don't support Dolby Vision. Dolby Vision is the premium HDR format used by Netflix, Disney+, Apple TV, basically everyone. It tells the TV exactly how to display every single frame. Samsung refuses to use it. They use their own format, HDR10+. Does it matter? To a casual viewer, maybe not. The TV's smart enough to make the picture look good anyway. But if you are a purist, if you want to see exactly what the director saw, the lack of Dolby Vision on a $2,000 TV is, well, it's a choice, a stubborn one. Okay, the fifth thing, and this is the one that ruins Super Bowl parties, viewing angles. Most LED TVs, especially the ones that use VA panels for better contrast, have terrible viewing angles. If you sit dead center, it looks amazing. If you sit on the recliner off to the side, the colors shift. The red looks orange, the black looks gray, the picture washes out. This is physics. The liquid crystals are aligning to shoot light straight out. If you have a wide room, if you have a big sectional couch, you have 3 options. Buy an OLED. OLED viewing angles are perfect. You can sit 89 degrees to the side and the picture is identical. Buy a high-end mini LED with wide angle tech.
The top-tier Sony and Samsung models have a special filter on the screen to help with this. It works okay. It's not OLED level, but it's better. Buy an IPS or ADS panel TV. These have great angles naturally, but their contrast is usually terrible. Blacks look gray even from the front. It's a trade-off I personally hate making. There is one more thing we have to talk about. It's not on the spec sheet. It's the lottery. We call it the panel lottery. See, making a screen this big, 75 inches, 85 inches, it is incredibly difficult to keep the uniformity perfect. You get something called DSE, dirty screen effect. Imagine you're watching a hockey game. The ice is white, the camera pans across the rink. On a cheap, massive TV, and even sometimes on expensive ones, you will see these faint, stationary shadows, like someone wiped the screen with a dirty rag. It's subtle, but once you see it, you cannot unsee it. This is where the budget brands like Hisense and TCL sometimes stumble. Their specs are incredible for the price, but their quality control, it's looser. You might get a perfect panel. You might get one that looks like a jail cell with vertical bars. With Sony or LG, you are paying that extra 20% partly for better QC. You're less likely to get a dirty panel. Not impossible, but less likely. So you have to ask yourself, do I feel lucky? Are you willing to box up an 85-inch TV and return it if you lose the lottery? Because let me tell you, wrestling an 85-inch TV back into the box is a marriage-testing event. All right, we need to talk about the brain again, but not the picture processing. I'm talking about the operating system, the smart in smart TV.
Here's the dirty secret. TV manufacturers are data companies now. They don't make money on the hardware anymore. Margins are razor thin. They make money by tracking what you watch and selling that data. That is why every TV forces you to connect to Wi-Fi during setup. And the software, it rots. You buy a TV today and the interface is snappy, apps load fast. Great. Give it 12 months, maybe 18. An update comes down and suddenly Netflix takes 10 seconds to open. The menu lags. You press volume up and nothing happens for 3 seconds. It's maddening. This happens to almost every brand. Samsung's Tizen OS is busy. It's full of ads. It tries to do too much. LG's WebOS used to be the gold standard, but now it's getting cluttered too. Google TV on Sony, Hisense, and TCL is probably the cleanest, but on cheap processors, it turns into molasses. So here is my rule. Don't buy a TV for the OS. Assume the OS will die in 2 years. Budget for a streaming stick, an Apple TV 4K, or an NVIDIA Shield, even a Roku Stick 4K. Keep the smart part external. That way, when it gets slow, you replace a $50 stick, not a $1,500 TV. Okay, let's bring this home. You have 5 things that matter: processing, light control, environment, motion, and viewing angle. Everything else is noise. So who are you, and which one should you actually buy? Let's break it down by the only 3 profiles that exist in the real world. If you watch movies at night, if you have blackout curtains, if you care about director's intent and want the picture to look like a window into another world, you are buying OLED. Specifically the LG C-Series, C3, C4, or the Sony A80. Why? Because light control is king here. Infinite contrast. You get perfect blacks. The letterbox bars disappear into the bezel. It is immersive. It is beautiful. Pick the LG if you're a gamer. 4 HDMI 2.1 ports, it's bulletproof. Pick the Sony if you watch a lot of movies and upscaled content. The processing is slightly more natural. The motion is slightly more cinematic. Just remember the trade-off: environment. If you put this in a sunroom, you will hate it. It's a vampire. It needs the dark. If you have windows, if you watch football on Sunday afternoon with the lights on, if you leave the TV on for news tickers or kid shows all day, you are buying mini LED. You want the Samsung QN90 or the Sony Bravia 9 or X93. Why? Brightness. These things are light cannons. They can hit 2,000 nits. They laugh at glare. You can see the puck on the ice even if the sun is hitting the screen. And because they aren't organic, you don't have to worry about burn-in from the ESPN ticker. Pick the Samsung if you want the absolute brightest, punchiest image and gaming features. Pick the Sony if you want better motion handling for sports and less blooming. If you want 90% of the performance for 60% of the price, if you are willing to play the panel lottery and maybe tweak some settings to get it right, you are looking at Hisense U8 or TCL QM8. These are the disruptors. They use mini LED tech. They are incredibly bright. They have deep blacks. For gaming, for HDR movies, they look incredible. The trade-off? Processing and motion. Out of the box, the colors might be a bit neon. The motion smoothing might look weird until you turn it off. And the upscaling of old cable TV isn't as clean as Sony. But for the price, it is impossible to beat. Just buy it from somewhere with a good return policy, in case you get a bad panel. Look, here's the truth bomb, the thing the industry hates me saying. There is no perfect TV. Every single screen I have ever tested, even the $5,000 flagships, has a flaw, a quirk, a blooming issue, a tint. Your job isn't to find the perfect TV. Your job is to pick the flaw you can live with. If you hate gray blacks, you live with the lower brightness of OLED. If you hate dim screens, you live with the slight blooming of mini LED. If you hate spending money, you live with the motion artifacts of a budget brand. Don't chase the unicorn, chase the physics that match your room. One final warning, the 60 Hz trap. Whatever you do, even if you're on a tight budget, try to stretch for a TV with a 120 Hz native panel. Even if you don't game, even if you just watch movies. Why? Because 24 movies goes into 120 evenly, 5 times. It doesn't go into 60 evenly. That means a 120 Hz TV can play movies with perfect cadence. A 60 Hz TV has to do something called 3-2 pull down, which creates judder. A cheap 120 Hz TV will often look better in motion than an expensive 60 Hz TV. It's math.
I've put links below to the specific models that passed the real-world test this year, the ones that actually have the processing, the dimming zones, and the panels to back up the marketing. I keep that list updated because models change every 6 months, and they love to sneak in worse parts on the holiday versions, so check the description. Don't let the store demo mode fool you. Trust your eyes, trust the physics, and for the love of God, turn off motion smoothing when you get it home. I'm Chris Walker. I'll see you in the next one.